He married the Hokage's wife? Please subscribe. Episode 21. Tsunade didn't expect Ye Chen to suddenly speak so affectionately, and he was suddenly a little shy. Instead, Ye Chen thought of his previous promise, looked at Tsunade, and said with a smile, "Remember what I said when I left, you don't want to regret it, do you?" Tsunade remembered when he heard it, but when Ye Chen left, he said that he would marry him when he came back, and Tsunade did not refuse at that time. Konoha does not have a standard age for marriage, as long as both parties are willing, even at the age of 16. So Tsunade and Ye Chen got married at the age of 18, which is actually quite normal in this era. Of course I won't regret it, I just don't know what grandma said. Ye Chen saw that Tsunade agreed, and he was naturally happy, and as for the grandmother Tsunade said, Ye Chen remembered. Although the Senju clan has completely declined, and only Tsunade and her younger brother Rope Tree remain, there is still a needle-like existence of the Sea God Needle. That is the highest combat power in the entire Konoha at the moment, Tsunade's grandmother Uzumaki Mido. As the first generation of the Nine Tails pillar power, Uzumaki Mido has almost reached the level of spiritual connection with the Nine Tails, and the combat power displayed is definitely not to be underestimated. The evaluation of her in the original work, but assisted by the thousand-hand pillars to calm the troubled woman. Even though her strength may not be as good as Uchiha's, she is definitely an existence that other ninjas are afraid of. After all, the Nine Tails is the strongest existence of the tailed beast, and with the Nine Tails, she is not far behind again. Moreover, the Vortex clan also has a sealing technique, as well as an amazing amount of chakra and vitality. The strength of this old lady, in this era of dead and fake death between the pillars, I am afraid that she is the first person in the real ninja world. Thinking of this, Ye Chen said to Tsunade, "Then go meet Mido-sama, I'm sure she will agree to our marriage." Although Mido is powerful, judging from the performance of the original book, he should be quite approachable, and he also takes great care of his junior of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Joshinai. In addition, Ye Chen has been quite good to Tsunade and her brother over the years, and he should still be able to persuade the other party to agree to the marriage. Tsunade had no objection to this, and besides, her grandmother had said a few days ago that she wanted to see Ye Chen. However, if you want to see grandma, you have to tell the teacher first. Grandma is now protected outside the village. Ye Chen was immediately puzzled when he heard this. Oh? Isn't Mido-sama in the village? Why do you still need to live outside the village? It stands to reason that Mido, as Tsunade's grandmother, should also live together in the house of the Senju clan. Besides, Mido is not too young, so wouldn't it be inconvenient to live outside the village? Tsunade heard Ye Chen's question, and the hand held by Ye Chen couldn't help but clench his fist. Grandma is old. The teacher was afraid of the Nine Tails riot, so for the safety of the village, she took her grandmother outside the village, and others could not easily see her. Hearing this, Ye Chen once again refreshed his understanding of the ape flying sun. This old thing is really not a thing. How can Uzumaki Mido say that he is also his teacher's wife, and he is actually treated like this? It is said that it is for the safety of the village, but the people Uzumaki Mido is the first generation of human pillar power, and now he is more than 60 years old, and with the talent of the Uzumaki clan's longevity, the seal of the Nine Tails is definitely not so easy to go wrong. This move is, to put it bluntly, imprisonment. Then, combined with Ye Chen's conjecture about the sudden disappearance of the Thousand Hands clan, it seemed that the result was already coming out. And Tsunade's behavior also said that although she didn't say anything, she probably had already complained about what happened to her grandmother. In the original book, she will eventually leave the village. I am afraid that it is not simply because of the death of her lover and brother, but the village really disappointed her. Patting Tsunade's fisted hand, Ye Chen comforted, "Don't worry, sooner or later, I will let Mido-sama return to Konoha." If it was Ye Chen before, Tsunade didn't believe that he could do this. This was going against Hokage. But now Ye Chen has the strength to kill a shadow-level powerhouse, and he is called Blue Lightning by the ninja world, and he is even stronger than Tsunade in terms of deterrence. I believe you. The feeling that someone cares. Tsunade is naturally very useful, and she did not refuse Ye Chen's kindness. After all, the two are only one step away from the husband and wife relationship. After another day of rest, Ye Chen finally regained his ability to move. He didn't waste time either, and he found the ape flying sun chop in the first time. Although Tsunade insisted on accompanying Ye Chen refused, because he already had a hunch that this meeting with the three generations would definitely not be a simple matter of a few words. His conjecture was not wrong. He heard that Ye Chen wanted to see him, and although the three generations summoned him immediately, there was a Tuanzong sitting next to him. This made Ye Chen, who knew the details of these two old guys, have a bad premonition for the first time. Episode 22. Fortunately, Ye Chen's body has now recovered, and because he has experienced a life and death battle before. Now his strength has improved again. If he is allowed to fight Wins with Shiro again now, he is confident that he will definitely be able to win more easily, and he will definitely not win almost miserably like this time. In the face of the 3 generations of Hokage, the ninja ape known in the ninja world, and the veteran shadow level group Zo who has been famous for many years, he is confident that if the other party really wants to make a move, he is absolutely capable of resisting. Even with lightning speed, it was possible for him to kill a Danzo. Tuanzong has not yet transplanted the Sharingan, and his strength is only relying on excellent wind and escape attainment in addition to the sword technique. These were no threat to Ye Chen. On the sword method, Ye Chen is the top of Konoha. Sooner or later he will surpass Chimu Shuamao. Even if he uses the wind to deal with Ye Chen, now his speed is completely unafraid. With confidence, Ye Chen changed his previous humility, and in the face of the 2 people with the supreme power of Konoha, he was also humble and unassuming. Naruto-sama, I heard that Mito-sama lives outside the village? Before he figured out Ye Chen's intentions, Tuanzong would not speak for the time being. However, when Sarutobi heard Mito, his brows were already wrinkled. Speaking of the person he fears the most now, in addition to Tsunade, who has a senju background, there is also this Uzumaki Mito. Everything he did back then was seen by this old lady, and if it weren't for the lives of Tsunade and Rope Tree as bargaining chips, he probably wouldn't be alive now. Yes, Mito-sama's status is special, and even I can't see it without special circumstances. What he is most afraid of now is Ye Chen meeting with Mito, and he doesn't know if Mito will reveal what happened back then. Tsunade and Naoki are not afraid of Mito's leakage, because he has an agreement with Mito, and as long as it leaks, both of them will die. But Ye Chen was different, so he absolutely couldn't let Ye Chen meet with Mito. If Ye Chen and Tsunade were joining forces with the Uzumaki Mito rebellion, then he would be helpless. Ye Chen completely ignored the words of the 3 generations. My current situation should be very special. I am going to marry Tsunade, Mito-sama, as Tsunade's only elder. I should be fine to meet him, right? As soon as his voice fell, Tuanzong, who had never spoken on the side, immediately stood up. Nope. How can the private affairs of the children of the district be compared with the safety of the village? The reaction of the 3 generations was not as direct as Tuanzo, but put it mildly. Mito-sama is old, and the 9 tails in his body are very unstable. If only your marriage with Tsunade was held directly, don't bother her old man's house. The attitude of the 2 people is so resolute, coupled with their lofty status. If they are replaced by any ninja of Konoha, I am afraid that they can only silently accept this ending. But Ye Chen is not an ordinary person after all. He killed Wen Zhuoshirlang before, then the reward for choosing to go to the border should have been distributed. He had already checked the system backpack, and it did have divine power inside. With Shinwei in hand, Ye Chen is confident that he can come and go in Konoha without a trace, so his confidence is much greater. Then Ye Chen suddenly stood up and looked at the 3rd generation and Tuanzong and said with a sullen face, "What if I have to meet?" He is not afraid to turn his face with 2 old guys now. If he really provokes him, he will defect if he is a big deal, and kill one before leaving. When did Sandai and Tuanzo ever talk like this? They immediately stood up. They never expected that Ye Chen would be so swollen after killing the shadow level Wen Zhuoshirlang. Could it be that Ye Chen still wanted to be alone and single out 2 long famous shadow level shadows? Just as the 3 of them were fighting each other, there was a knock on the door of Hokage's office. Knock knock. This knock on the door immediately eased the atmosphere in the room, and the 3 generations and Tuanzong sat back at the same time, and Ye Chen saw this before slowly sitting down, but the anger on his body did not put away. Come in. The 3rd generation doesn't know who will look for him at this time, but he clearly said that if he wants to discuss big things with Ye Chen, no one can be put in. When the words fell, the door of the office opened, and a middle-aged man dressed in a black combat uniform walked in. His clothes have a fan-like mark and his trademark black hair, which is a member of the Uchiha clan. In this era, Uchiha has not yet declined, except for the defection of 1,000 hand pillars of the same name Uchiha spot. The current Uchiha family is completely preserved. And their famous 1,000 hands have been destroyed, but they are still intact. This is the biggest force in the entire Konoha, except for the Dark Department and the Border Force. Uchiha Yu. When Ye Chen saw this person, he subconsciously said the other party's name. Uchiha Yu did not appear in the original book, but his identity is not ordinary. He is the current patriarch of the Uchiha clan, and his strength has also reached the shadow level. The 3rd generation saw Uchiha Yu and suddenly had a bad premonition. This guy doesn't seem to have a good temper, but in front of the interests of the family, he doesn't dump himself this Hokage at all. Coupled with the sudden appearance here now, I'm afraid he also has some ideas about Ye Chen. Episode 23. After Uchiha Yu entered the office, he found a place to sit down casually, without a sense of restraint at all, and did not have any fear of Danzo and Sarutobi Hinata. I heard that you are discussing something important with Ye Chen. I accidentally heard it just now. To be honest, I agree with Ye Chen's words. Lord Mito has always hoped that his granddaughter has a good home. What is wrong with the future son-in-law seeing him? As soon as Uchiha Yu's words were spoken, he and Ye Chen's position were immediately bound together. Richo and Tuanzo looked at each other, and they both immediately saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. Ye Chen naturally noticed the small movements of these two people. He couldn't understand a little. How could the Yuzebo family make these two old guys afraid? Isn't it also the Uchiha extermination plan, personally planned by the two of them in the original work? Such a pair of guys who kill decisively and don't know what their conscience is, actually know to be afraid? Ye Chen sensed that Uchiha Yu's chakra was at most similar to Tuanzong, so his strength may be a grade with Tuanzong, and it could not be because of his strength that made the two fearful. Then Ye Chen thought of the Uchiha family in this period, which is described very little in the original work, and Ye Chen knows very little except that there is a Uchiha Konoha garrison. Except for a Uchiha mirror who had been killed by Tuanzong, Ye Chen really didn't know what masters there were. Is it because of the overall strength of the family? At this time, Ape Flying Sun Chopper also spoke. Since Lian Yu said so, then I reluctantly agreed, but Ye Chen, remember not to disturb Mito-sama for too long, she is not young and needs to rest more. Ye Chen raised his eyebrows when he heard this, but he didn't expect that the old guy really agreed. It seems that the water behind this Konoha is very deep, and a seemingly powerless Uchiha patriarch can actually make the two who hold the power fearful. Uchiha Yu saw that his words had an effect, showed a faint smile, and then said, "That's right, if you don't even give a future grandson-in-law, it will be too unkind, and then the people in the village will gossip about you." Uchiha Yu said very casually, as if it was a joke, but Ye Chen felt that there was a murderous intention hidden in it. At this time, Ape Flying Sun Chopper also stood up and said with a smile, "This is, after all, it's all a family, see you when you see you. By the way, Moon, I heard that you often play chess with that old guy in Hinatsu recently, when will you take me?" Ye Chen was confused by the sudden words of the Ape Flying Sun. How could he be so good at playing chess? But this person called Hinata, Ye Chen carefully recalled, in Konoha can play chess with Uchiha Moon and still have a name with Hinata. I am afraid that only the current Hyuga family had Hinata. The Uchiha family master actually played chess with the Hyuga family master. Is there any secret in this? Uchiha Yu waved his hand and said as if teasingly, "Forget it, after you kid became a Hokage, he was busy until midnight every day, where will we have time to play chess?" After saying this, Uchiha Yu turned his head to look at Ye Chen and said, "Boy, you are very good, let's go, don't cause trouble for Naruto-sama, he still has to deal with official business." Saying that, he walked out of the office first, and when Ye Chen saw this, although he was confused by Uchiha Yu and Hinatsu, he still hurriedly left the office. He also didn't want to spend more time with the old guy of Richo, not to mention that there was an obscure Tuanzo standing next to him. It's a pity that I couldn't find Tuanzang to ask about the whereabouts of Mute, but fortunately, the option reward for Mute has not yet come out, indicating that Muzun is not life-threatening for a short time. When Ye Chen also left the office, he saw Uchiha Yu actually waiting for him outside the gate. "Thank you seniors for your help just now." Since the other party helped him speak, Ye Chen naturally would not skimp on words of thanks. Uchiha Yu waved his hand, as if what he did was not a big deal, but said with a look of appreciation, "You kid is very good, I almost forgot, how many years ago did someone dare to talk to Hinata like this?" Ye Chen suddenly became interested when he heard this. Oh? Could it be that talking like that would make Naruto-sama angry? Seeing that Ye Chen was still pretending to be confused, Uchiha Yu shook his head, and then said with a gloomy face, "It's going to die." Hearing this, Ye Chen didn't pretend to be stupid, but just asked, "Who died last time?" Faced with this question, Uchiha Yu did not answer, but remained silent. Seeing that the other party did not answer, Ye Chen changed the topic and asked other questions. "The Uchiha clan has not always been a loner, how could Lord Yu suddenly help me?" Uchiha Yu raised his head at this time and looked at the sky, and then said lightly, "If you have difficulties in the future, you can come to me, I am not only helping you, but also helping ourselves." After saying this, his figure disappeared directly, as if it had never existed. Instantaneous technique, it's really terrifying speed. I just don't know what the relationship between him and the Uchiha mirror is. Ye Chen first glanced at it, but he almost took him for the Uchiha mirror, and the two people really look 70% similar. Could it be a brother? Episode 24. After returning to his residence and sharing the news that he could go to see Mito, the first thing Ye Chen did was to go to the bathroom and check his reward. When he killed Wenzo Shiro before, he fell directly into a coma. So I haven't taken a good look at my rewards. At this moment, I opened the system backpack and saw the Sharingan icon with soil inside. The full version of Kamui, the ability to cast without writing chakra, no chakra when casting, only physical strength is consumed, and both virtual and Kamui can be used. Ye Chen saw that it was indeed the complete version, and hurriedly used Shinwei, and with this move, his life-saving ability had one more use. Full version of Kamui, ding. The full version of Kamui is successfully used, and the ability is being transmitted. When the ability transmission was completed, Ye Chen suddenly mastered the divine power, and just gained the ability, he couldn't help but try it. The next moment, layers of spatial fluctuations appeared around his body, and then his body completely disappeared in place. When he reappeared, he had already arrived in the world of Kamui, where there were no objects, only countless geometric stones. This world is exactly the same as the Shinwei world with soil, and Ye Chen couldn't help but wonder, could it be that his Shinwei and the one with soil are still connected? After trying his ability, Ye Chen found that his divine power consumed very little physical strength, and it was not as good as the consumption of his divine punishment. And because he doesn't need to write chakra eyes as a medium, he doesn't need to worry about eyesight problems at all, and he doesn't need to bother with an eternal kaleidoscope. After mastering Shinwei, he also mastered the knowledge of spatial coordinates, and Ye Chen could now move to any corner of the ninja world at any time if he wanted to. When Ye Chen returned to the ninja world, there was a knock from Tsunade outside the bathroom door. "Hurry up, don't make grandma wait too long." When Ye Chen heard this, he hurriedly packed up his clothes, since he went to see the elders. This time he was also wearing a little more formal. He changed into a men's kimono given by Tsunade, which was sewn by Tsunade himself, and Ye Chen was naturally very satisfied. A white and black kimono was very decent on Ye Chen's body, and the whole person's temperament became a little more elegant. When he came out, Tsunade also changed his clothes, and the same kimono was worn on a person of Tsunade's stature, but it was even more charming. Ye Chen naturally couldn't help but look at it a few more times. He felt that happiness came too suddenly. Such a woman actually wanted to marry him? Tsunade's eyes lit up when he saw Ye Chen's dress. Ye Chen himself looked outstanding, and now after changing his combat clothes, he was more attractive than before. Then Tsunade grabbed Ye Chen's arm and said, "Let's go." Although Ye Chen was happy in his heart, his face still pretended to be serious. However, being hugged by his wife like this, if his willpower is not firm, I am afraid that he will have gaffed long ago. The two walked a few kilometers out of Konoha village, before coming to the bottom of a tower built next to a lake. The first time he saw this tower, Ye Chen was inevitably a little familiar, and after thinking about it, when he found that Naruto was born later, he seemed to have been brought to this vicinity. According to Ye Chen's heartnet perception, this area is really heavily defended. On each floor, there are many upper ninja leading patrols, and at the very top of the tower, there is also an elite upper ninja level chakra. These are probably the manpower sent by the 3 generations to monitor Uzumaki Mido. However, Ye Chen immediately discovered a terrifying chakra, which was as hot as a flame in the perception of the heartnet, and looked like a demon fox from a distance. And the amount of chakra is the most terrifying he has seen so far, even if the ape flying sun slash is several times worse than this chakra. Ye Chen knew that this might be Uzumaki Mido. Sure enough, as he had guessed before, this Uzumaki Mido was now Konoha's strongest combat power. It's just that he is a little puzzled. Why would Mido, a whirlpool of such strength, be willing to be locked up in such a tower? With her strength, if she wants to defect, it is estimated that no one can stop her, right? With this question, Ye Chen and Tsunade slowly went up the tower, and on the middle floor, they saw Uzumaki Mido. Although Uzumaki Mido is imprisoned in the tower, the conditions are still good. The entire room is quite luxuriously decorated, and there are all kinds of daily necessities and furniture, and several maids are waiting. It seems that the ape is flying and has the last trace of conscience. Tsunade saw the grandmother who had not been seen for many days, and naturally pounced, and the two chatted about homely things, but Ye Chen stood by and scratched his head alone, which was really a little embarrassing. Fortunately, the conversation between the two did not last long, and after about a few minutes, Uzumaki Mido turned his head to look at Ye Chen. "You're Tsunade's boyfriend." Seeing her grandmother call Ye Chen like this, Tsunade showed a rare shy expression. It seemed that no matter how tough she was with outsiders, when she faced her own relatives, she was still like a child. Ye Chen came up and said, "My name is Ye Chen, hello Mido-sama." For Ye Chen, Uzumaki Mido seemed to be very satisfied, so he nodded with a smile. "You guys go down first, I'll talk to Ye Chen." Episode 25. Hearing Uzumaki Mido's words, all the maids who were serving next to him withdrew from the room. Then Uzumaki Mido also glanced at Tsunade. "You go out first." Tsunade was also a little puzzled at this time. What did grandma say? Even she couldn't listen to it. However, she still respected her grandmother very much, so she did not question it and slowly walked out the door. When passing by Ye Chen, he didn't forget to say it in his ear. "Come on." Tsunade felt that grandma probably wanted to test Ye Chen, so she would cheer Ye Chen up like this. Ye Chen felt that this was not the case. This old lady probably had something else to say, because since he came in until now, Mido didn't even think much of him. All this is too weird, which is the attitude of a grandmother examining her grandson-in-law. After everyone had withdrawn, the smile on Uzumaki Mido's face gradually disappeared and was replaced by a flat face. "Actually, the biggest obstacle to your marriage is not me." Uzumaki Mido's sudden words made Ye Chen a little puzzled, but he still nodded. He also knew that Mayo and Danzo seemed to very much not want to be with Tsunade, otherwise he would not have sent someone to assassinate him at that time. If it weren't for his great increase in strength at that time, I am afraid that he would have already been a corpse. "Do you mean Sandai and Danzo?" Ye Chan's words were expected to be affirmed, but Uzumaki Mito shook his head. Your sense of politics is not bad, but you are still too naive to think, and this pool of water in Konoha is much deeper than you think. Ye Chen immediately asked as soon as he heard this, are you saying there are others who want to stop us from getting married? Mito nodded and continued, actually, I should have told Tsunade, but she is too impatient to understand this matter. Ye Chen also agreed with this, even if Tsunade became a Hokage later, many things were made for granted, and even a little blindly believed in Naruto. Therefore, in addition to his own strength and identity, Tsunade is not particularly suitable for politics. Uzumaki Mito suddenly changed his head and said, do you know what is the essence of Konoha? Ye Chen thought to himself, Uzumaki Mito wanted to test himself, and after thinking about it carefully, Ye Chen replied, Konoha seems to be a village and a country, but in essence, the ninja families are independent and check and balance each other, so it seems that the establishment of the ninja village has eliminated the gap between the families, but this is just turning the endless fighting between the families into invisible infighting. Uzumaki Mito listened to Ye Chen's answer, his eyes also lit up, and then said with satisfaction, you are really different from others, and seeing this shows that you have really thought about what a village is. Looking out the window for a while, Uzumaki Mito said slowly, in the past, all the families competed for the title of the strongest family in order to compete for resources, and now all the families of Konoha are fighting for the right to distribute resources, and the supreme right of Konoha, Hokage. Ye Chen also deeply believes this, although it is not directly introduced in the original book of the battle for the Fire Shadow, it must be bloody. The apprentice of the third generation of the Great Snake Pill even defected directly after the failure of the Hokage competition. You must know that his scientific research has been going on, how could it be that he defected after the Hokage competition failed, and it was so coincidentally discovered by his master? All this is too coincidental to make people think in the darkest way. Although the fourth generation of Meiba Feng Shui men competed for the Hokage, but the final death was also outrageous, although the opponent was the Nine Tails, but judging from the performance of the next 4 battles, the 3 generations joined forces with the 4 generations to definitely be able to stop the Nine Tails. However, the 3rd generation arrived after the death of the 4th generation, and Ye Chen would not believe it if there was no cat greasy in this. Ye Chen nodded, indicating that he agreed with Uzumaki Mito's statement. Danzo and Sarutobi, needless to say, they are the highest power in Konoha today, and they are also the winners of the last struggle, but they should not talk about the monopoly of power. This move offends all the entire Konoha family. You also sense that a big war is about to take place in the ninja world, and the contradiction of this big war is not a national interest, but a war deliberately triggered by the various families of Konoha in order to eliminate dissidents. When Ye Chen heard this point of view, countless pictures flashed in his mind, such as the decline of many families after World War II, such as the decline of the Apefei family, and the family of Shimura Danzo was completely left with him alone, and now Hinata is like the sky, and there are only 2 or 3 small fish and shrimp left. This is in stark contrast to the current strength of various families. Therefore, Ye Chen couldn't refute Uzumaki Mito's words for a while, but then he asked curiously, haven't you been in the tower all the time, how do you seem to know everything outside? Uzumaki Mito smiled contemptuously, and then said, remember Konoha Village's perception array? That's from the Uzumaki clan. When Ye Chen heard this, he suddenly thought of a possibility. Are you saying that you can spy on the entire Konoha through the Great Array? Uzumaki Mito did not shy away and admitted directly, Apefei's peeping crystal ball was still given to him by me, and now that I think about him back then, he still respects me very much. Episode 26. Hearing this news, Ye Chen immediately thought about whether his past performance was too amazing, and he didn't want to be discovered by the identity of the person who crossed and the existence of the system. Fortunately, he recalled it carefully, and there seemed to be nothing too amazing. Even the existence of the system has only recently appeared, and Ye Chen has always hidden it well. But even so, he was extremely shocked by Uzumaki Mito's ability. In this way, this hidden woman is the one who knows everything about the entire Konoha. From the time she married Senjakuma before Konoha was founded, to the 28 years since Konoha was founded, she can be said to be a living fossil of Konoha's history. Uzumaki Mito seemed to know that Ye Chen was difficult to understand for a while, so he deliberately waited for a while before continuing. Combined with what I said earlier, in this war, each family will try their best to weaken their opponents to achieve their goal of running for Hokage, and you are naturally their competitor, so each family will show you favor next, such as Uchiha Kagami is the first to do so. When Ye Chen heard this, he immediately thought of something. So approaching me to show favor is just the appearance, and then they will sell my information to other villages from all angles, and let me die accidentally in the war outside the village? Seeing that his words were halfway through, Ye Chen came to a conclusion, and Uzumaki Mito was even more satisfied. You're right, this is exactly what they mean by the first layer. As for the second layer, anyway, they have already shown friendship with you, even if you don't die by luck in the end, you can't think of their hands, they have nothing to lose. Still your ally. Ye Chen really said this when he heard this. According to the current scene, if he was really secretly calculated, I am afraid that he would only throw the pot on Tuanzong and Ape Fei. It's really some beasts that eat people and don't spit out bones. He now understood that the resistance he and Tsunade would face in marrying was not only the Sarutobi duo, but also the vast majority of Konoha's family. However, he will not be afraid of this. After all, he has a system here, and it is possible for his future achievements to catch up with the 6 immortals. How can he care about the calculations of some shadow level and elites? Uzumaki Mito immediately chuckled when he heard Ye Chen's description of these families. What you describe is very graphic. In fact, if the pillars are still there, Konoha is the strongest ninja village in the world, and the whole world is invincible, and the unified ninja world is just around the corner. However, after the death of Pillar Ma, the village became a mess of scattered sand, and when no one obeyed anyone, the infighting continued for more than 10 years, and I am afraid that Konoha will really decline in the future. When Ye Chen heard this, he sighed that the 1,000-hand pillar died young. If he died a few years later, he might not have as many things as later. Then remembered the dirty methods of the ape flying Sun Slash and Tuanzong, and said with a little contempt, it's still to blame for the 3 generations and Tuanzang. These 2 old guys patronize their own power, but they don't manage the various families well, and everyone is engaged in intrigue. This time, Uzumaki Mito actually did not agree with Ye Chen's point of view, but said with a look of emotion, the 2 of them are indeed hateful, but the culprit is actually the 1,000 Hands clan. Ye Chen also had a question mark on his face when he heard this, but fortunately Uzumaki Mito answered it in time. Before the First Ninja World War, there were fluctuations within Konoha because of the death of the pillars, and the most fierce of them was the Kiki clan, second only to Senju and Uchiha in strength, and the Hokage at that time was Kuruma, and in the end of the Kiki clan. You should have seen it, right? Ye Chen heard that it was really this thing. How the Chimu clan looked at the talent is not bad, even if there are legends about the Chimu tribe dominating the side during the Warring States period, but it was quietly extinguished, and now only the Chimu Shuamao clan is left. In addition to the Chimu clan, there are many small and medium-sized families that completely disappeared in the First World War, and not even a single clan remained. Although what Konoha did have an effect, Konoha has indeed stabilized for a few years, but it has also damaged the atmosphere of Konoha. Having said all this, Uzumaki Mito finally wanted to express her original intention at this time. Hearing this, do you still want to marry Tsunade? Faced with Uzumaki Mito's question, Ye Chen answered immediately without any hesitation, no matter how hard it is, I will marry Tsunade. Uzumaki Mito looked at Ye Chen without hesitation, nodded with satisfaction, and then asked, in that case, then answer my last question, are you willing to take on the responsibilities that belong to Tsunade? Sit in Hokage's position and bring Konoha back to the top? As soon as Uzumaki Mito's voice fell, the system's prompt sounded, ding. To detect the current situation of the host, the system gives 3 options. Option 1, promise Uzumaki Mito and become Hokage. Reward, friend or foe attribute view, system function. Option 2, refuse Uzumaki Mito and continue to make a salted fish. Reward, kaleidoscope riding wheel eye. Option 3, plot against Uzumaki Mito and take her and Tsunade to defect to Konoha. Reward, Bitengen improved version, no cooldown. Episode 27. As soon as the system's prompt came out, Ye Chen hurriedly looked at it seriously. The rewards of these 3 options are not too bad. The second option he directly ruled out that he no longer wanted to be a salted fish, but still rewarded the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, which is already a powerful ability that can make people directly rise to the shadow level, but unfortunately for the current Ye Chen, it is not much attractive. Then he looked at the third option. This time it was still the ability to write the wheel eye, although the trick of the other gods had little effect in the original book, but if it was replaced with no cooling, it was an excellent illusion. But Ye Chen didn't write the wheel eye and didn't have the bloodline of Yujibwa. He wasn't very optimistic about this reward. No matter how strong the gods were, they had to look at the caster, otherwise a samurai like Tuanzong couldn't hypnotize, not to mention the subordinates Ye Chen might fancy in the future. If you think about it this way, it seems that only option 1 is the best choice. Although he still doesn't know whether this friend or foe attribute viewing function is useful to him, but it is also a new function of the system, Ye Chen feels that no matter how good the ability is, it is definitely not as good as the system. After all, these abilities can be obtained by the system sooner or later, but the functions of the system are not encountered every time. In addition, this option was also very suitable for him. He listened to Uzumaki Mito's words, and was trying to stir up the muddy waters of Konoha to see if he could become a Hokage. Like those who instigate B-crossers, even with the system and plugins, the first thing to do is to think of defecting, and Ye Chen can't do it. As a man. A crosser. He just wants to bravely face any challenge and break the constraints of any plot. Me. Sincere. Meaning, hearing Ye Chen's categorical answer, Uzumaki Mito really laughed this time. What an interesting little ghost, being so intimidated by me, there is actually no trace of fear, you are much stronger than Hinata and Tuanzo. And Ye Chen laughed heartily when he saw Uzumaki Mito, knowing that his choice was right, at least Uzumaki Mido, a powerful helper, he had won it. Until he grows to the peak of the ninja world, this woman will be his biggest backer. At this time, Uzumaki Mido said with a smile, "In that case, let's start talking about the topic." After Uzumaki Mido finished speaking, she walked off the ground, which had been lying on the bed, and then said with her hands sealed, "In seal solution." With a light drink, Uzumaki Mido's forehead, the dark blue mark that was the same as Tsunade's in seal, suddenly dispersed, and then slowly formed a pale pink eyeshadow in his eyes. And her body has also changed. Originally she is over 60 years old, although the maintenance is good, it seems that only a little more crow's feet, but the skin is still a little tight. At this moment, Uzumaki Mido looked at least 30 years younger, and the muscles on his body were once again rejuvenated. What surprised Ye Chen the most was the chakra of the whirlpool Mido at this moment. If her chakra Ye Chen could still be estimated at the peak of the shadow level before, now Ye Chen really couldn't judge what level it was. This made Ye Chen think of a possibility, that is, the super shadow level. Ye Chen was still surprised, and the system's prompt tone actually sounded again. Ding. A condition of the host is detected and the system gives 3 options. Option 1, continue to talk about business, rewards, Konoha physical arts mysteries, millennium killing. Option 2, slander Uzumaki Mido, reward, time and space ninjutsu, flying thunder god art. Option 3, get the recognition of Uzumaki Mido, reward, 1 bottle of millennium life pill. The system will judge what kind of reward to give based on the host's behavior. Looking at the options suddenly given by the system, I immediately thought about it seriously. After carefully browsing the options given by the system and various rewards, Ye Chen was speechless for a while. What are the first 2 options of stinky fish and rotten shrimp, and the millennium kill can also be used as a reward? Option 1, direct pass. There is also option 2, actually let him go to slander Uzumaki Mido. People have just shown their strength at maybe super shadow level, and they go up at this time to mouth BB, isn't they looking for death? As for option 3, Ye Chen said that it was difficult to get the approval of Uzumaki Mido. After all, people were legendary figures who had existed since the beginning of Konoha's establishment, but he would not be discouraged. After all, he is someone who knows everything about the ninja world, and I am afraid he knows more than Mido. Mido-sama's trick is amazing. Is this a type of medical ninjutsu? I can still look forever. Episode 28. When Uzumaki Mido heard Ye Chen's praise, he smiled gently. After all, there is no woman who does not love beauty, let alone a naturally beautiful person like her. Otherwise, she would not have developed this in-sealing technique. This move is a move that any woman dreams of, and it has the miraculous effect of eternal youth. You kid has a slippery tongue, why didn't you see you so slippery when you chased Tsunade before? Then, Uzumaki Mido walked to the sofa next to him and sat down. Okay, let's get down to business. Since you are willing to take responsibility, then I will do my best to help you become Hokage. Ye Chen also straightened up, walked to the side of the whirlpool Mido, and sat down. At this time, Uzumaki Mido also said in a straight face, if my prediction is correct, Konoha will completely decline after the Great War, and there will be no survival of each family, and the successors will be a problem, and at this time, the day of the emergence of civilian ninjas will come. Whether it is for the continuation of the family or to strengthen the strength of the family, each family will begin to recruit outsiders, or let outsiders into the family or accept them as righteous sons. As long as the qualifications are outstanding, they will be valued. Ye Chen nodded. This point is similar to what he guessed. You must know that the current ninja families are extremely exclusive in internal marriages, but later they are willing to marry civilian ninjas. Some even simply accept the involvement of civilian ninjas, which is difficult to imagine today. I know that the next Hokage must be from a civilian, and I have been looking for a suitable candidate. At first I fancy, your resilience and understanding are enough, but unfortunately the bloodline is mediocre, and I finally gave up. Until last year I found a good seedling. If it weren't for your amazing performance recently, I'm afraid I wouldn't have let Tsunade marry you. Ye Chen knew that although he had practiced diligently before, his qualifications were really not good, and his future achievements were limited, so he didn't say much, but he was a little curious, who was the person that Uzumaki Mido fancy? I wonder who was lucky enough to be chosen by you. Uzumaki Mido said, Wei Feng Shui Men. Now he is only 4 years old, but because his parents have died, he is very independent. His cultivation is also very hard, coupled with being kind and likes to make friends. His future achievements are limitless. Ye Chen couldn't help but admire Uzumaki Mido at this time. He was actually able to judge the direction of Konoha in the future so accurately. You must know that the 4th generation of Hokage is not from a civilian background? And the 4th generation of Hokage is exactly the Wei Feng Shui gate. If he were just an ordinary civilian, even if he cultivated hard, I wouldn't be selected again, because the upper limit of strength would not be very high, but I investigated and found that his father is actually a side branch of the Thousand Hands clan, and his mother is also the bloodline of the Vortex clan. Hearing this, Ye Chen finally figured out the question that he couldn't figure out before when reading comics. Why can a civilian-born Wei Feng Shui man have such terrifying strength? It turned out that he was only a commoner, but he had the bloodlines of the two top families of Hokage in his bloodline. This can also explain why Buofeng Shui Man likes the red-haired Joshinai, probably out of longing for his mother. At this time Uzumaki Mito continued, "Now it's all gone, I'll help you come as Hokage in the future, you've shown amazing potential, I trust my vision, and the next nine-tailed man Zhili I prepared for Wave Feng Shui Men, just find a chance for you to adopt." When Ye Chen heard this, he immediately had a guess, but he still pretended to ask, "The next nine-tails pillar force?" Uzumaki Mito said with a smile, "That's right, I have already looked for a girl in the Uzumaki clan, she is the descendant of my sister, her bloodline is very pure and absolutely capable of being able to become a human pillar force. If you adopt her, you can cultivate a good relationship in advance, and in the future, the nine-tailed human pillar force will become your bargaining chip to become a Hokage." As soon as Ye Chen heard it, he knew that this girl's 8 achievements were Vortex Joshinai. However, he still wondered why Uzumaki Mito was alive and well, why he remembered to find the next person of the 9 tails. "I see that you don't show any signs of age, and your strength is still so amazing, why don't you preside over the political situation in Konoha yourself, and find the next person Zhili so early?" Uzumaki Mito shook his head and said with a look of despair, "I've lived long enough, I've seen too many intrigues and tricks, life and death, and now all that's left is boredom. As for me to preside over Konoha's political situation? Don't forget, I'm from the Uzumaki clan. Even if I really became a Hokage by force, no one would listen to my orders, because in essence I am not from this country." Episode 29. Uzumaki Mito is a member of the Uzumaki clan, and the Uzumaki clan has not yet perished. They founded the Uzumaki country outside of Konoha, separated from Konoha by only a straight distance. In this era, the relationship between various countries was already tense, and the country of Vortex refused to merge into Konoha, so the people of Konoha basically had some opinions about the people of the Uzumaki clan. Ye Chen also heard a little bit of suicide from Mito's words, maybe this woman is tired of this world, otherwise how could she, who was almost invincible in the original work, suddenly disappear in the ninja world? Uzumaki Mito, who mastered the Ein seal, even if she wanted to die of old age, she had to be about 100 years old, but after she taught Joshinai, she disappeared directly, which had to make people suspicious. Thinking that Mito had plans to die, Ye Chen hurriedly said seriously, "In that case, let me help you fulfill your long-cherished wish. Let Konoha become the strongest in the ninja world, so that everyone in the ninja world can live a peaceful and happy life. It may take some time to do this, but Ye Chen has the confidence to do it in a short time, his Thunder Fruit and Hawkeye's swordsmanship experience, as long as a few years of training, can definitely reach the 6th level, and then it will not be a problem to unify the ninja realm. Unifying the ninja world, he also has a way to eliminate ninja war, whether it is nuclear deterrence or relying on system rewards, it is also a method." Seeing Ye Chen's serious look, Mito said with a smile, "If you can do it naturally, it will be the best." Hearing Uzumaki Mito's words, Ye Chen knew that she didn't take her words seriously at all. "If you don't believe it, then live until that day, see for yourself if I can do it, for the sake of the rope tree or for the sake of Tsunade, please don't be alive." Ye Chen's words from the heart hit the heart of Uzumaki Mito. She never expected that Ye Chen could actually see that he had plans to commit suicide through a few simple words. She almost forgot how many years no one had talked to her like this, the people around her always wanted her to die, no one had ever advised her to live, and it was because of this that she was tired of the world, and sometimes she really felt superfluous. So this is the feeling that someone cares, it's really nostalgic. When Ye Chen heard her words, he breathed a sigh of relief, and then thought about it and thought of a wonderful method. "I think you can always maintain the state of Ein seal, always disguise yourself as an old man, and your thinking will inevitably change. In fact, you are very young and beautiful, and you can continue to live a young life. Moreover, such a state can deter those enemies even more." Uzumaki Mito's problem, she is a fan of the authorities. Ye Chen can see that she always pretends to be an old man, plus she has always lived alone in a closed room, so there is a problem with her mentality, and gradually there is a suicide that old people will have. This problem is also easy to solve, as long as you move out and live and communicate with young people more, it can be alleviated. Since he is Tsunade's husband now, he naturally can't let Mito casually seek death. Plus where the options of the system are, no matter what, Uzumaki Mito will not die easily. "And Tsunade misses you so much, it's better to simply live with us, and when you get used to the bustle of people, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave in the future." Uzumaki Mito was also moved by Ye Chen's words. She was originally smart, so she only needed Ye Chen a little to be able to figure out the key. And Ye Chen's concern for her is also unpretentious, which makes her experience the feeling of being cared for again after many years, so her mood is much better for a while. "You kid has a heart, I'll keep this young state like this, but I can't go out for a short time, wait until the end of this war, then the strength of each family will weaken, and the opposition to me going out will be smaller." Ye Chen naturally had no objection, as long as Uzumaki Mito agreed. When the time came to go home with him, it would be much easier to obtain Uzumaki Mito's approval. Then it couldn't be better. I see my wedding with Tsunade, and wait until you come out to hold it. Your only relative Tsunade is not present, and the wedding is not like that. This time Uzumaki Mito did not refuse and nodded. Just do it, but you can remember that Hokage is not so good. If there is a clan close to you after you go back, then make a good relationship first. After listening to Uzumaki Mito talk so much, he naturally knew how important this point was, so he agreed with his mouth. Got it. Everything was arranged. Finally Uzumaki Mito said, everything else is good to say, the key is yourself. If you can't survive this war, then everything is empty talk, although your strength has a shadow level, but it is still too tender. Remember not to underestimate the enemy on the battlefield. Although Uzumaki Mito's words were a little contemptuous, the concern in his words did not seem to be fake. This made Ye Chen also rarely feel the care of his elders, which was the same as Mito's concern for Joshinai in the original work. Uzumaki Mito and Ye Chen chatted for an afternoon, and then discussed how to consolidate their power, and introduced Ye Chen to the temperament of each family owner, so that his next actions could be correctly dealt with according to the temperament of different family owners. And Tsunade's eyes immediately lit up when he saw that his grandmother suddenly became so young, and the two women immediately began to chatter, discussing the details about the Yin seal. Ye Chen saw that no matter what era a woman was, as long as she talked about maintenance and beauty, she would immediately become gushing. However, he was happy to see Uzumaki Mito so energetic. This is what a woman should look like, and the previous Uzumaki Mito was calm and intelligent, but it was too old-fashioned. Episode 30. After returning from Uzumaki Mito, Ye Chen moved out of his house and lived directly with Tsunade. Since the two were already preparing to get married, Ye Chen did not plan to continue living alone. And Tsunade is a rich woman who owns all the mansions of the Senju clan, and Ye Chen will not be polite with her. Now Tsunade has not left the village to anesthetize herself with gambling, so she has at least a dozen mansions, and they are all in the most prosperous area of Konoha, and they are rich women in the true sense. After moving in, Ye Chen chatted with Tsunade about the content of the previous conversation with Mito. In fact, even if he did not take the initiative to say, I believe that Tsunade, who is very curious, will inevitably take the initiative to ask. First of all, Ye Chen said about Tuanzong and Ape Fei, presenting the gloom of these two old guys without reservation. For example, Ye Chen was assassinated and the Thousand Hands clan was destroyed. Tsunade, who heard this, naturally did not believe that the master he had always respected would be such a person. But when she heard that these were all seen by Uzumaki Mito with her own eyes, she was a little shaken. Mito was arguably her closest person, and her only relative except her brother. There was no need to deceive herself. Thinking about what Ape Fei has done over the years, it does reveal a strangeness, and she believes this statement. At the same time, she also had a trace of disgust for this village that she once loved so much, and her three views collapsed a little, and the whole person was a little shaky, as if she was about to faint. Ye Chen put his arm around her at this time and said comfortingly, don't worry, when I become Hokage, it will definitely change all this. And the death of your parents, I will return them justice. Tsunade has not yet had a dead lover and a dead brother, so the biggest regret in his heart is probably the early death of his parents, and hearing Ye Chen's words, Tsunade was also moved. After ordinary people heard that Konoha was so dark, they would probably have retreated long ago, but Ye Chen did not abandon her, and even took the initiative to fight for the position of Hokage, which was something Ye Chen had never said before. Although Ye Chen had been striving to become stronger before, he was not interested in being a Hokage, and such a change was naturally for Tsunade. Ye Chen, thank you. When Ye Chen heard her name, he immediately said with bad intentions, you still call me by my name, and I'll change my name in the future. As soon as Tsunade heard that the two were already engaged, and an engagement ceremony would be held in a few days, it seemed reasonable to change his words at this time. Husband. Listening to Tsunade's soft voice, Ye Chen could be regarded as understanding a wish. In the tall tower outside Konoha, at this moment, Uzumaki Mito still maintained his youthful appearance, and did not pretend to be an old man again. The maids under their hands naturally discovered this, so they notified Ape Fei as soon as possible. However, since Uzumaki Mito dares to do this, he is not afraid of apes flying over to find trouble. If she really wants to fight, she has no opponent in the ninja world today. Now she was idle, and just opened her crystal ball, wanting to see what big happened in Konoha today. Thinking of Ye Chen who came in the afternoon, Uzumaki Mito muttered with a smile, look at this kid, he said so much in the afternoon, he should be practicing hard now, right? The next moment, the picture of the crystal ball was locked on Ye Chen's body. Seeing Ye Chen's manual foot to Tsunade, Uzumaki Mito also muttered angrily, this stinky boy is not married yet, so dishonest. Having lived alone in the tower all these years, coupled with seeing all the darkness of Konoha, she was already a little cold. Now after many years of seeing such a picture, she will inevitably smile. Fortunately, her grandson appeared in time in the crystal ball, but Ye Chen failed to succeed. At this time, Uzumaki Mito did not dare to look at it anymore, and hurriedly transferred the picture to the heads of other families. Ye Chen stopped his hand, not because he was honest, but because his brother-in-law came out to make trouble at a critical moment. Looking at the rope tree that suddenly appeared in front of him, Ye Chen felt that hatred in his heart, thinking that this stinky boy would really pick the time. Lao Tzu was about to get down to business. Brother-in-law, you're back. Hurry up and take me to cultivate, I have already mastered the fire you taught me last time. The rope tree was still young, so he didn't find Ye Chen and Tsunade's ambiguity, but just shouted nervously, let Ye Chen cultivate with him. Over the years, Ye Chen has been devoted to Tsunade, so her younger brother, Ye Chen, has also been enhancing his feelings. And rope tree is such a hot-blooded fool, it is easy to fool, and it is enough to teach him to cultivate more. Therefore, even if there is no matter of the Shangnan conference, Ye Chen can still easily win Tsunade as long as he blows the wind through the rope tree. When Tsunade saw his brother appear, he immediately did not dare to stay longer, and hurriedly withdrew to his study as if fleeing for his life. When Ye Chen saw this scene, he thought that he couldn't win the Tsunade today, and it seemed that he would be able to find an opportunity later. Stinky boy, come with me. I want to test your cultivation results well. Without saying a word, Ye Chen pulled the rope tree to the courtyard outside.